Hey everybody, it is January here in Georgia and it has finally gotten cold outside. And so for my workouts in the mornings, I started using one of the simplest, easiest ways to heat up your garage gym space, and that's using a space heater. But I started wondering, how much is a space heater actually doing to heat up my garage gym? I thought I'd run a little test and then I'd be able to share the results with you guys to help you out with your decision-making process on going out and getting something to heat up your garage gym space. So before we get into what I did, just a little bit of a context of my space so you can use it to compare it to your space. I've got a 2-car garage that is 21 feet by 21 feet with a 10-foot high ceiling. And I add in the ceiling because it's important to think about when you're heating up a space that you're heating up the entire space. So you gotta think about volume, not just square feet. So while my garage is 441 square feet, it's 4,410 cubic feet because it's gotta be able to heat up the entire space to make a difference in the temperature. Also, while I work out, my wife's car is usually almost always parked in the garage while I'm working out. I don't know how much of a difference that actually makes, but just wanted to point it out because the car could actually be taking up some of the volume of that space and actually making it a little bit easier to heat it up. But I want to give you that context because, for instance, when we lived in Philly, our garage there was a single car garage that you almost had to fold the side view mirrors in to get the car into the garage, and it was maybe 8 feet tall at best. And so to be able to heat up that space would be a whole heck of a lot easier than heating up the space that I have currently. So with that in mind, here is actually what I did. I picked up an indoor-outdoor thermometer. So the indoor unit you can see sitting here right beside me. With this, I can pick up the temperature not only inside the garage, but outside the garage. So I can see how much of a difference that it's making with the heat in here versus outside. And I wanted to make sure that it wasn't getting warmer outside, therefore that was affecting my readings of what I was getting inside. For the test itself, every morning for the past few mornings, I've gotten up, I've come down, and at 6:30, morning number 1, I turned on one space heater that was sitting just in front of my platform, which is off to my right here, by about 6-7 feet to my right, blowing directly at my platform, directly into this corner towards the squat rack. So I set the indoor thermometer up right here on the front edge of the squat rack. I figured this is kind of right in the middle of the space that I would be predominantly using. And then I set up readings for when I first turned it on at 6:30, 10 minutes in, 30 minutes in, and 60 minutes in. And the reason I picked those intervals is because I figure when I wake up in the morning, it usually takes me about 10 minutes from the time that I get coffee made or pre-workout done. And then I get dressed and get ready, all that kind of stuff is probably a good 10 minutes before I actually get out to the garage and get going. So if I could come down and as part of my process, turn the space heater on first, then I can see how much of a difference that 10 minutes makes before I actually get myself ready to get out here. 30 minutes is a little bit longer, but I figured it's still feasible to do in the morning time. Again, if I turn the space heaters on first, get my process started inside with getting ready, and then maybe I do part of my warm-up inside with a body weight mobility. Or even if I'm coming out here and I can layer up and get through the warm-up, by the time I actually get to the point where I'm gonna start moving some weight, how much of has the space heater made a difference in the space? And then finally, 60 minutes in, I realize that's not feasible if you're working out in the morning time, to be able to have these things going an hour before you even lift, and then you lift, and then you've got to get on with the rest of your day. However, maybe if you lift in the afternoons or you lift in the evenings, you can see how much of a difference letting them roll for an hour does with heating up the space. Really quick on the space heater that I use. So I used an Ocean Air Warm Wave that is a 1500 watt space heater that is designed to heat up a space of 150 square foot. It's a space heater that I've had for a long time. That's the reason I'm using this one. And actually, it's not even available anymore on Amazon. I did put a link in the description of a space heater that is really, really similar to the one that I have. Same size, same specs, same price point. And so if you wanted to pick one up like the one that I have, it's down there in the description box. So here's the results that I got from the test the first morning. So with having the one space heater sitting right at the front of the platform cranked up, after 10 minutes, really didn't do much of anything. And then even when I came in to check the reading at 10 minutes in, you really couldn't, unless you were standing directly in front of the space heater, you really couldn't notice a difference as well. 30 minutes in, again, didn't really move the needle a whole lot. And even an hour in, it only made a difference of 2 degrees. And again, that the 2 degrees was on the reading, but as far as kind of how it actually felt, again, unless you were standing directly in front of the space heater, you really couldn't tell a difference within the warmth within the space itself. Not really a huge shock considering that it's meant to heat up an area of 150 square feet and the area that I'm trying to have it heat up is almost 3 times that. And so for the second morning, I added a second space heater. Exact same model space heater. Why? Because I had 2 of the same model. So with the second space heater, I set it up on the side of the squat rack, which is on this side of me right here, about 3-4 feet outside of the rack. And so I had this heater pointed in and this heater pointed in, and then with the walls behind me, was trying to create basically like a cocoon of heat, if you will, to see how that would work heating up the space. And the results that I got from the second test were actually really, really good. 10 minutes in, it didn't make a huge difference in the actual temperature reading. However, you could tell a difference already as you stepped into the space. And it was weird because it did create that cocoon effect to where if you were standing in this corner, you could feel the difference in temperature as even if you stepped 5 feet that way and you got outside basically the cocoon, if you will, of heat that I kind of had set up. 30 minutes in, the results were really, really good. It moved the temperature 4 degrees, and it made a huge difference in how it actually felt within the space. I mean, you could tell a huge, huge difference. So that was really promising to me because it let me know that, hey, if I can get up just a little bit earlier, get my space heaters turned on, get my process, get my coffee going, by the time I get out here, the space that I'm about to work out in is going to feel a whole lot better than it would otherwise just walking out to a cold gym. And then an hour into it, it actually made a 7-degree difference. And I would go so far as to say it was almost a little bit toasty in this space to where I could see if I was actually working out, maybe even turn the space heaters down a little bit. So that was also really promising if it was a late evening workout or something like that, to be able to get these things cranked up and going would make a huge, huge difference. So after I got those results, I was really satisfied with them. Thought that basically answered my question. However, there was a small part of the scientific part of my brain that was a little bit skeptical, that wondered if the fact that the second morning it was a little warmer outside than it was the first morning, how much of a difference does that make with heating up the space inside the garage? For that reason, I repeated the second day's test a third day. And the third day wasn't quite as cold as the first morning. The first morning it was 33 degrees outside. The third morning it was 38, but it was a lot closer. And the results that I got from the third morning were almost exactly the same as I got from the second morning. So with 2 space heaters going, the results were almost identical. The only difference was an hour into it, it had moved it 6 degrees rather than 7 degrees, but that could easily just as be a rounding, not an error, but just a rounding discrepancy within the temperature itself. After getting the results from the third day, that pretty definitively told me that a space heater can go a long way into heating up your space. And I was actually thinking about possibly getting a larger space heater to try it out to see how much of a difference that made compared to the smaller ones. But at this point, I don't even think that's necessary. The 2 small space heaters that I have and having them sit up the way that I do makes a huge difference in my space. And it's something that I'm really, really happy with. So if you're looking to heat up your garage space, I'd highly recommend going out and getting you a space heater, or maybe even 2. And the other thing with having the 2 smaller space heaters is that you can position them to what makes sense within your space. And it's also actually ended up being cheaper for me to have 2 smaller space heaters than it would have been to have 1 larger one. So the 2 small space heaters that I have, you can pick those up for usually about 20-25 bucks. Some of the larger space heaters that I was looking at was $70, $80, even $100 plus for some of the larger models. So you're even going to save some money with getting 2 smaller ones as opposed to 1 really big one. Finally, one of the last pieces of information I wanted to share with you, because it was something I was thinking about a lot as I was thinking about using these space heaters to heat up the space, is how much does it actually cost you to run a space heater like this? When I looked it up online, I found out that a 1500 watt space heater uses about 17.5 cents worth of electricity per hour. And again, that's going to depend on the price of electricity and the wattage in your area where you live. It can fluctuate, it can change. Regardless of those fluctuations, at least for me, if I've got 2 space heaters going, 30 minutes before I work out for an hour, that's 90 minutes. You're looking at about 50 cents to heat up your space for your workout. And for me personally, I'll spend 50 cents every single day of the week to be able to lift in an area that's a little bit warm as opposed to lifting in an area that's an ice cold barbell, an ice cold space, trying to get my old knees warmed up and moving. And so for me, 50 cents to get my space warmed up is well worth it. And so hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you liked the video, do me a huge favor, go down and hit that like button, and look forward to see you guys next time.